That's what I'm gonna say from for sure. No. Yeah.
Wait, come and shake hands before it starts. Then, acceptable. I don't know. I usually do that if I don't know people. I'll come and say hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hello.
Thank you for being.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. So I think you know who I am. I just started it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole different world compared to active duty recruiting. I work with a lot of young people in recruiting, but it's still a lot different.
Yeah.
Yes, still learning every day.
Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start first with our land acknowledgement by Dr. Stevens. We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters. Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next up, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Next up, we'll have our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Director Ray.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Kingman. Director Kingman is absent this evening. President Levesque. Here. Director Knapp. Here. Student Advisor Schroeder.
Here.
Student Advisor Levon. Here. Superintendent Sweeting. Here. Thank you. Next up, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to be proposed to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve it as presented?
Make a motion to approve the agenda. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk. Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
President Levesque. Aye. Director Knapp. Aye. The agenda is adopted as presented. Next up, we'll have a very special presentation. We're very excited to welcome our Arlington High School Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. And we're going to first introduce our Senior Master Sergeant Yvette Larson, retired, and Major Mike Blue, retired, United States Air Force, and Senior Aerospace Science Instructor and the cadet of the Arlington High School AFJRO program. Welcome. We are so glad you are here. Please come up to the podium and you can introduce your students that you brought with you.
All right, sure. Hi, Major Blue, as you mentioned. It's good to be back before the school board. It's been a while since before COVID that we've been here. Today, we have our Aerospace Science Inspector, Senior Master Sergeant Larson. And I brought 5 of the students that are part of our cadet staff. We've got Cadet Rihanna Sano, Cadet Evan Hall, Cadet Abby Zani, Cadet Kylie Nye, Cadet Kelly Santos. And then taking pictures for us also Cadet Zachariah Christopherson, but he will not be briefing. Okay, so they prepared for you what we call the mission brief. It's a shortened version of the briefing that we have to have available for whenever we get inspected by our higher headquarters out of Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. They came in November, went through our inspection, and they gave a full-blown 45-minute briefing. And I know that's not within the scope of time here, so we've pared it down to right around 11 minutes or so. Hopefully that will be okay. Yes, so I will let the cadets take it from there. They're ready to talk, and remember to nod and let them know when they're up next. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Good evening. We are some of the new cadets of our HITC Corps here to inform you about what our Corps does and what we stand for. As Major mentioned before, I'm Cadet First Lieutenant Rihanna Sano, and here it is our. So starting off with our topics of discussion, we will begin with our mission, leading to the skills that cadets will be able to learn. Next, we will have the competitions and community service we partake in, as well as leadership and curriculum and action events, ending with morale, welfare, and recreation with a chance for questions after we're done. And then to begin with, our mission is basically what drives the Corps and is our roots, like what we stand for. So we start out with our core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in what we do. And then we have our honor code of I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate among us any of us who does. And then ending with our mission statement of developing citizens of character dedicated to serving their nation and community.
Well, I'm Cadet Second Lieutenant Evan Hall, the first semester squadron deputy commander, which is second in command, and I will be going over the skills we instill into our cadets, starting with confidence. We instill confidence into our cadets using things like this as a presentation, or we also do presentations within our class and our curriculum. Wearing the uniform instills confidence and learning how to wear it properly and proudly. Awards can also instill confidence too for getting different accomplishments and achievements throughout the Corps. The next thing is leadership. We instill leadership throughout our staff system, which is something that helps us run the Corps as cadets, with things like finance and MWR, and different positions like that. We also have the top 3 for our staff that kind of guides the direction of the squadron where we're trying to go. Also team leaders and commanders. Our teams need to be led by cadets, and they need to be directed by, you know, who we think are the best cadets to fit those positions and roles. The next thing is teamwork. We instill that with things like competition teams, in which a lot of them need to be able to work together, even in stressful environments, so that really works well. Next is team projects. Like in our curriculum, sometimes we put our cadets into teams. You know, we have to work together to make presentations such as this one. And also next is team building activities. As you can see that picture in the top right there. That is a picture of our cadets doing a game called Getting Over It, where they need to get to a group of 3 people all touching, and they need to get over the pole there without touching the pole. So team. Next is organization. We have a management unit and one of our leadership curriculums. And that pretty much goes over, you know, how to manage on different levels. There's different, like a paramedic management, we go over that and how to manage in those levels, and how to do it organized in an orderly fashion. Also staff also helps train and prepare for organization. Next up, we have discipline. Wearing the uniform also helps with discipline. A lot of cadets don't want to, but they know they have to, and they do that, and we respect them for that. Also zero period, getting up in the morning and going to zero period takes a lot of discipline as well, and it helps instill and prepare them for what's ahead of them in life. Next is survival. We have a class in our curriculum as a survival class. It's actually pretty cool. We go over things like navigation in unknown areas. If you don't know where you are, we learn how to navigate through those specific areas. Building shelters in the woods or other areas we don't really know. We actually go out outside of the school on school property and we build shelters there in the woods, try and learn how to do that. And what we also do is we build fires and learn how to do that in primitive and modern ways.
Hi, I am Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Kaya Bizani. My part of this brief will cover competitions and our community service within the Corps. So with competitions, the really big competition that our zero period things take place in is our Northwest Drill and Rifle Conference competitions. That includes arm drill, which is arm drill and unarmed drill. If any of you guys are familiar with what step is, both are very, very similar, especially unarmed drill. Arm drill is essentially the same thing, except they can use those beats with rifles, spinning, things like that. We also have marksmanship, which is our air rifle team pictured on the left. It's challengers or pump guns, and they've just got the little pellets. We have color guard, which if you've been to a baseball game or a football game or a basketball game, you present the colors for, you know, the American flag, the organization flag, and the rifles. But we do it with a drill card. In this sense, it's a little different than what you guys see in the public. We also have PST, which stands for physical strength team, which as the name suggests is a PE-based strength team where they do the mile run, they do the push-ups and the cadence sit-ups, and they get scored accordingly. And then we have the academic team, which again, as the name suggests, is an academic-based competition where you're given a bank of questions to study, and then you take a test accordingly and get graded accordingly. We also have orienteering, which is a navigation-based competition separate from our drill competitions. You get a map, a compass, an electronic punch, and you get to run through the woods and punch into certain punches and get to the end, and you get timed, and your time is calculated through your score. We also have our JROTC Leadership and Academic Bowl, which I would assume most of you are familiar with Knowledge Bowl. I'm pretty sure all the schools in the district have one. And it's super similar to that. It's an online-based academic competition with a huge variety of questions in their bank. And you answer the questions as a team to determine if you move on to the next round. The picture on the far right is a group of us at, I believe that is Fort Beebe for one of our orienteering competitions. And then we have community service, which is arguably one of the biggest parts of our cadet corps. We take a lot of pride in our community service and we participate in a whole lot of it. You have to have community service if you want to rank up. You have to have community service as part of the grade in the class. One of the big ones we do is we direct traffic for a lot of events. So when we host the College and Career Center, we have our cadets down there in ABUs or in their vests directing traffic to get everything going pretty smoothly. And cross country every year has asked us back to direct traffic for the cross country championships when we post it at the airport. We also clear trails. We get in contact with the Snohomish Rangers, and we don't typically do it in the winter because, you know, it's dark and it's wet or it's snowing. But as springtime comes around into the summer, we do a lot of time out there cutting down trees, bushes, moving logs, and picking up trash on the trails. One of the most widely known community service events of ours is obviously the parades. We did the Veterans Day Parade back in November. We do the Memorial Day at the end of spring. We also do the Homecoming Day Parade and the Christmas Day Parade. We also do Adopt the Highway, which is a huge community service event in our corps, but maybe not as widely known to the public. So we go out there, we have a massive sign, we get in our vests, our hard hats, our gloves, and we pick up trash off the portion of Highway 9 that our cadet corps has adopted. Finally, we love to partner with Key Club. Huge supporters of us. We partner with them for all sorts of community service events. One of our favorites being Trunk or Treat, where we decorate the trunks of our cars and the kids from the elementary schools and middle schools can come out and just do a little bit of trick or treating in a more contained environment.
I'm Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Kylie Knight. I am our personnel director on our cadet staff, and I'll be going over our leadership events. So for JRTC, we have leadership development requirements, or LDR. Some of these events include color guard. Now, this is slightly different from the competition color guard that Cadet Abizani explained earlier. These are the ones you see at all the football games where they go and present the colors. We've also been asked to do graduations for Stanwood, or things like Veterans Day assemblies for some of the middle schools, or even Grace Academy. And that's pictured there right in the middle. That is our competition team, but they wear essentially the same uniforms for most of their events. Our recruiting trips to the middle schools are also part of our LDR events. You can see it pictured on the right there. We basically have a dedicated team of cadets that will go and talk to the upcoming freshmen to essentially give an overview of what our program offers and some of the activities they can participate in. And probably one of our biggest leadership events also is our team practices. Once again, those are our drill teams like the color guard and arm drill. Our duels, which you have for armed and unarmed. And then once again, JLab, our online competitions. And so for our leadership development requirements, we have 3 different tiers. For tier 1, currently this year, we have JLab, but usually we will also have Cyber Patriot, which is a team of cadets who compete in online competitions with coding. For tier 2, we have our competition teams once again, and once again, our color guard is pictured right below it at our Everett drill competition from last year. We also have in tier 2 our Kitty Hawk Air Society, which is basically our cadet corps' version of the National Honor Society. They usually get involved with tons of fundraising stuff, or specifically this year helping move stuff from our portable to our classroom. And then in tier 3, we have flag details. So cadets will in the morning put the flag up and then take it down at the end of the day. And part of flag detail occasionally is our flag retirement ceremonies. All the way on the left, you can see that was at our cadet leadership camp. We were burning multiple donated flags for retirement. We also have under tier 3 our planning committee. So for our big events like our end of the year award ceremony, we have cadets dedicated to planning that, or at the start of each year, we have basic leadership training, or BLT, where older cadets will plan a day for the first years to come and learn basic things like how to wear the uniform and marching. We also have the green team, which is part of what Adopt a Highway is. And then we have the Saber team, which is pictured below at our 80th celebration of Pearl Harbor, where they'll present at all of our more important events, like once again, at our end of the year banquet.
Good evening. I am Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Keone Santos. I am the Yearbooks Director. I will be talking about our curricular in action, also known as the CIA. They plan trips for the school year. So for example, our Science of Flight class that mainly resides of freshmen, they already went to the Arlington Airport as a field trip. Our aviation history class, which this year we are planning on going to the Museum of Flight, as well as all the cadets going to the Everett Naval Station. We also have our competition teams discussed previously. We have 4 trips, and for orienteering, we have 9 trips. These are all per year, almost about. The picture on your left is our dual unarmed exhibition team at state last year, and the one on the right is our first competition at Peninsula. And next is our MWR, also known as our Morale, Welfare, and Recreation. They organize and plan fun events. For example, our morale portion, we plan our winter ball, paintball, bowling, and many other fun events. And it's pictured on the top of there. And we also plan fundraisers as well. We do stadium flowers, mod pizza, car washing, and other events. And that's pictured on the bottom.
These are all the topics we went over. Are there any questions?
I have a question. How many cadets are in your program?
Currently, right now, I believe we have said 100.
So we had 102 at the count date for the first semester. There's always a few that say, not for me. So right now we're at 96. So still maintaining pretty good. They asked us to report our numbers on February 10th also, but it's just to see if you're still kind of in that ballpark. The actual count date is October 10th. We had 102.
Very good, thank you. I have another question. if That's okay. Have you moved into your new classroom?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you like it so far?
We're a little short on storage space, but we're working on getting that sorted out. It is, we do like it. We're getting used to it. It's pretty nice.
Is this a program that goes all 4 years, or do you have to wait till you're a sophomore? You can do it freshman
You
year.
can do it freshman, yes, ma'am.
And do you have most people that continue on for all 4 years, or?
It's really hit or miss, yeah. But, some people like it, as maybe you were saying, some people don't. It really just depends on what the cadet thinks and how they, perceive it.
Perfect. Well, I will say you're very polished, I would say, for young people. Yeah.
Thank you.
The rest of our future looks like you guys were in good shape.
And I believe all of the cadets here have been in the program for 4 years, is that correct?
We have 3 seniors and 2 juniors with this. What I can add on to that, if it's okay for you, it's okay, you're doing fine. So the question about the students, whether they continue or not, it's difficult to maintain one type of class for 4 years based on the credits that they need. So they really have to do some juggling if they want to do it for 4 years, or use it as their electives, which of course means maybe they don't get to take a shop class or something like that as much as they want. So those that stick with 4, a lot of them, typically that's their career path maybe, or they're thinking along those lines.
Sure.
We even have them join us second semester of their senior year only. They wanted to, I'm thinking about military, I want to see what it's like.
Nice.
And that's my version of the beauty of the class, is they get a chance to taste it.
Then that's a great opportunity. Yeah, I think
Yes.
any sample you can get before you go out, career and college ready, it's a career.
And then
So,
you're stuck for 4 years going, oh, I don't like this. Well, try the class, you might figure that out in advance.
yeah, save some headaches later on.
Can I ask a follow-up
To
question
me, or
to all of you? I don't know.
yeah.
What category does ROTC fill in your, is it a CTE credit or is it a PE credit? What is that?
It counts as CTE, and personalized pathway credit.
You don't mind if I interject the freshman class, or typically what is the freshman class or the first year class, whatever you want to refer to it as. Science of Flight is a science credit, so that's a big one of our recruiting points is you get a science credit and then we mix leadership and PT into the curriculum. So it's not like you're taking 5 days of science a week, but you get the same amount of credit.
So there's some flexibility on how you apply your
Yeah.
whichever pathway. Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. Thank you. Any more questions? I also have one more question. I'm very curious on how you communicate with all of these cadets all the time. How does that even work? If you're all in different classes at different times, how do you get everybody on the same path or the same page with all the different events and activities?
So a lot of that is with our staff. So there's the actual class itself and then an extra curricular kind of thing that we participate in. And so we have a top 3, which is the top 3 performer cadets of our corps. And basically they have a lot of say in what goes on. They're kind of running it. And then there's directors of like was mentioned before, just the personnel, and each one is not necessarily all from the same class. They're all from the different ones. So then those directors from those classes bring the information to all of the other classes so they know what's going on.
I also think as simple as it is on the whiteboard, is it, yeah, a lot of our info between classes, between events goes on the whiteboard. And then we have a cadet essentially as the head of each class that we call them the flight commander. And they read the board every morning and kind of brief everybody in the class about what's going on.
Very good.
I'm just really impressed.
Great job.
Thank you.
Do our student advisors have any questions about anything that maybe something new that they've learned tonight about the program in their school?
No questions. I've just always thought it to be a great program. I just didn't know that you guys had so many people.
It's new this year. We were at like 50 something last year, I believe. So
75 last year.
it was, yeah, but it's been really low before.
I don't think I have any questions. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So, in recruiting, how do you go about recruiting or informing students about this opportunity?
I honestly think that in all honesty, Zachariah over there would be the best person to answer this question. He was recruiting director for 3 years. And he's done a fantastic, phenomenal job at what he,
Doing something exactly like this, bringing it up to the middle school. Bringing it up to the middle schoolers is a huge one, but I'd say the biggest thing is our involvement in the community. When they see us downtown parades, when they see us in community service, seeing us out in the community helping, is probably, I'd say, the biggest one, because we can kind of use that to be like, hey, this is what we do.
Thank you.
And I do have one more remark. When students join JRTC, we like let them know, like, hey, this class is not forcing you into the military. It's just to like show you what it is, like what it could be like. It's just preparing you mainly in leadership and how to, build your skills.
I do have one question. I'm in flight and I always see you guys in the morning. What's the difference between the morning classes and the classes throughout the day?
So in the morning, normally if you see us in the gyms or maybe in the commons or something, that's 0 period. And those are our LDR teams, tier 3 teams going in and practicing for competitions we have that were talked about and described, like color guard, marksmanship. We also have some teams that practice after school, like arm drill.
Any more follow-up questions? Thank you very much for coming tonight. We've very much enjoyed hearing from you and your program, and thank you for all the community service you do for our city. We appreciate you. And you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. But you're welcome to stay as long as you like. Next up on our agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have?
So that parent's waiting.
Oh, yeah, I hear the weather's iffy tonight.
Yes. My mom said it's snowing on it.
I heard that too. The next up on the agenda is our approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, our regular meeting minute for January 23rd and our special board meeting minute from February 6th. Do we have any changes to any of the minutes as presented? Do we have a motion to approve January 23rd regular board meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve January 23rd board meeting minutes, regular board. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the January 23rd regular meeting minute. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Next up, do we have a motion to approve our special board meeting minutes from February 6th?
I'll make a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for the special board meeting on February 6th. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the special board meeting minutes from February 6th. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. All right, so the minutes are approved and we have no one signed up for a public comment. So we will move on to our consent agenda, which includes our personnel report, payroll report, warrants, adjusted warrants, a donation from Eagle Creek PTA to Eagle Creek Elementary, a donation from Electro Impact to the ASB First Robotics Club at Arlington High School, overnight trip for the girls wrestling to state, and the overnight trip for the boys wrestling to state, and the overnight out-of-state field trip to for the AHS Air Choir to Idaho, and then an overnight field trip for AHS DECA to Bellevue. Do we have anything that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Or do we have a motion to approve it as presented?
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Next, we'll have our new business portion of our meeting. And that first thing we have is our report of donations approved by the superintendent in January.
So during January, I approved a donation from Stanwood School District, Camino School District of 14 iMac desktops at a value of $2,100. And this is the second
time that we have received this kind of donation from them, and we're very happy to use those pieces of equipment. So happy about that.
Thank you. That's exciting. New to us.
New to us, we can use them.
Thank you for that report. Next up, we have our curriculum for agriculture, science, education, case supplies grant. And this will be presented by Brian Long, who's joining us via Zoom. Good
Hello.
evening, Brian.
What?
Good evening.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Are my ROTC kids impressive? You should see them when they're all dressed. It's really cool. So CASE is Curriculum for Agricultural Science Education, and we have been working with CASE, which is a nationally recognized organization that develops updated and continues to update their curriculum every single year for agriculture in specific, and it makes sure that the most up-to-date science and ideas are incorporated in all of their curriculum. We already have one CASE class, and it's the plant science class. And we had Jessica Nimnick go to a 2-week course to become certified to be able to teach it. It's 2 weeks of 8 hours a day of trying to learn and understand the curriculum from day 1 to day 180. They are no joke. It is 80 hours of professional development, and they try to cover as many of the most difficult labs as fast as they can so that the teacher can successfully implement them. One of the biggest components of the CASE curriculum is that it is very student-centered. It is not attempting to in any way make it so the teacher stands and students just receive, but rather it is very much a let's actually do the science involved, or let's find a way to make this as student-centered as possible, which even just having the plant science course in place, we've already seen an increase in the level of participation, a decrease in the amount of discipline issues coming out of the ag class in general, and an overall more engaged set of students. This plant science curriculum has already been implemented for about 54 students. The animal science course will be next, and that will happen this summer. But while we continue to be a CASE class, we can also apply for this grant every single year for $5,000. And the money is gathered from various sources, and they actually aren't able to give it all out every single year. So as long as you do the paperwork and check all the right boxes, you get it. So this is not a competitive grant by any means. So good job us. We got our $5,000. And it's earmarked to kind of pay for stuff for this year to get ready for next year. And then we already have a pretty substantial amount allocated for her to start her animal science class. But you really need to go through the training first to see exactly what it is that you need versus what we have. So a lot of it is duplicatable, and we just need to make sure that we're not wasting money by buying a bunch of stuff we already have. So we'll use this to kind of buy the stuff we know we need for next year. And then she'll use funds during the summer to purchase the last bit after she goes through the 2-week training. So this is the CASE grant. And in the long term, we'll also do AFNR, Agricultural, Forestry, Natural Resource as well. And so all of our CTE class, or our ag classes, will be CASE classes. So, and it's good stuff. And the curriculum, we get it for in perpetuity as long as Jessica is our instructor. And then 1 year, if for whatever reason Jessica were to go, we get it for 1 year following that. And then we have to recertify that teacher. And it gets updated every single year or every couple of years at a minimum, and it costs nothing more for us. We just have to buy consumables. So it's a great program. Questions?
I have one question. Who is allowed to apply or be a part of this? Is it freshman to senior, or is it junior, senior? Because scholarships, I'm just a little confused on that part.
So this CASE grant is for funding for our classes only. So yeah, so we've already been awarded it. We're just really waiting to accept it, is the reality. And it's just only CASE certified teachers can apply for the CASE grant through Washington State.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions?
So I was just wondering, that sounds like there's more project-based with this curriculum than.
It's 100% project based, in fact. There is no, every single activity that it sets up, it literally is set up so that by the end you're doing some sort of project, whether it's research or whether it's an actual lab or some version of a lab. Every single activity is that way. It is very demanding in terms of organization and upfront, but once it's going, it's a pretty awesome thing to watch.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Thank you.
All right, if there's no more questions, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve the curriculum for agricultural science education and supplies grant.
I'll second.
I can see that.
And Mike, you can second it too.
Second.
Perfect.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the board approves the curriculum for agricultural science education case supplies grant. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Okay, the case supplies grant is approved. Next up, we'll have our universal design for learning update. And we would like to welcome up front Carrie Henderson-Burke, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, and Angie Kyle and Megan O'Brien, our UDL science teachers from Post Middle School. Welcome. And good to see you.
All right, very excited to bring two more teachers to you to talk about what they've been doing with UDL in their classrooms. Remember, we've had Judd Hunter here to talk about high school PE and the variety of ways, the variety of class offerings that they have to engage high schoolers before they walk in the doors of any gym or weight room. We've had 3 elementary teachers come in and talk about how they've applied choices with the intent of removing barriers to learning and barriers to access. Tonight, we have Angie Kyle and Megan O'Brien. They are teachers at Post Middle School, and they have run with UDL principals. Remember, the 3 big categories are variety of ways to engage kids, a variety of ways for kids to learn the content, and a variety of ways for kids to show what they know. So they'll cover all 3 of those.
Thank you.
I'm Angie.
I'm Megan. UDL, as was mentioned before, stands for Universal Design for Learning. It supports inclusion, equity, and access to the curriculum. It is not in addition to the work we do, but a framework by which we design, develop, and deliver curriculum that is inclusive and equitable.
And like Carrie just said, there are multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression, which we'll talk about what that looks like in our classroom shortly.
So all of our students come to our class and they have diverse needs, experiences, skills, and knowledge. And we feel that every person brings a unique perspective and just individuality to the classroom. And we feel that UDL really capitalizes on this. And so I kind of made this access analogy, whereas if you're going from Arlington to Seattle and you only have one point of access to get onto the freeway, and there were roadblocks, then it would limit access to people being able to reach Seattle. And so what UDL does is it just provides different points of access for all different types of drivers or motorists or however you're going to get to Seattle. And it just makes us all be able to reach that destination in our own way. Sorry. And pretty much limiting our expectations to say one person's idea of what people should learn really doesn't allow the learning to be deeper. And so if we limit those expectations to one view, then we can miss the various levels of learning that naturally happen with individual engagement. So allowing those different opportunities to engage just kind of opens up learning.
Yeah, I've spent a considerable amount of time researching student engagement in the classroom. Why? Because we observe a lack of engagement in the classroom. And I wanted to know more about what practices increase engagement. I've really recognized that traditional education isn't meeting the needs of all of our students. We don't need to impart information on them as we used to. They have access to a lot of information, sometimes too much information. But what we really need is for students to practice applying their learning skills and applying them, to be critical thinkers and problem solvers, to be able to ask questions, and then to apply that learning, whatever that new knowledge is, to different contexts. And so we really want, what we see is, or what I've seen in my research, is that it really comes down to this idea of centering student choice and voice. That is one practice that is key to increasing student engagement. And that's really how we see UDL, is that it is centering student choice. It gives them choice in how they access the information, how they practice it, how they demonstrate their learning, and how they apply it. And that really is the game changer for us, is just that choice component. So
here's some different ideas that we've kind of thrown together. I think it was, so the one on the far right, the mechanical wave menu, that's one that we just are doing this year. Last year, we started with the end in mind. So like, we got to the end of a unit and we were having the students do all the same things. And I was like, why don't we have them demonstrate what they know? And we could create this like choice board. They have to come up with 100 points and they can show us what they learned anyway. And so we're kind of like at a year in and kind of adding to this kind of choice board.
yeah, sorry. At the beginning of the year, we thought, how can we go from just demonstrating their learning, but how can we give them different ways to access the information and how to practice it. And so that's where we kind of started with this safety. We have to learn about safety in the science classroom. And it's like the same thing every year. So how can we let them help them to access that in different ways where they need it, meet them where they need it. And so that's where that came from. And then it just keeps evolving.
Yeah, it does. So like this time we started with the vocabulary and then we're moving into note taking. And one of the funniest things is, do you want to tell the story about that?
Yeah. I hear all the time, why do I have to learn this? And that's a valid question. I think students deserve an answer to that question. And so, or I don't want to do this, or, oh, we're doing doodle notes again. I hate coloring. And so the funniest part was they had 3 options for note taking. They had the doodle notes. They had book notes, like they had the option if they wanted to read the text and take notes, or if they wanted to watch a video and take notes. And majority of my students chose the doodle notes. It was kind of funny. But
that we did last year.
Yeah, but I just think it was because and enough of them who didn't want to do that got to choose a different route. And that was it was empowering for them, right? To be able to choose, I want to do this because it meets my needs, or it's my strengths are in art and coloring, or my strengths are in reading and writing. Like, it just really it opens up that for the students. So
yeah, they get to bring who they are to the classroom instead of, fitting this nice little mold that we think that they should be. So great. Here's just some sample work. There's digital poems. Like just the other day I said, one of my warm-ups was, all right, write a haiku on what do you understand about functions, linear functions. And they came up with some really great things. Now, did they all do haikus? No. Did some of them not know what a haiku was? Yeah, of course, So I said, just do a poem or a summary, And so they were able to each of them actually did it. It was really neat to walk around the classroom and see kind of what they were coming up with. That was just a warm-up, so. Anyway.
Well, this was just some of the work from a year ago when they were doing the mechanical waves choice board for their showing their learning at the end. It was basically their assessment. Some kids wanted to do things digitally, some didn't. Some kids created a quiz, a traditional like multiple choice quiz, which some of them might have preferred. Like some kids really just said, just give me the test. And
so then we give those tests to the kids that want to do the test.
Yeah, so anyways, and other kids used their art skills and they just really showed which route they wanted to go. And it was really fun to see. We learned a lot about the students by watching their choices, what they ultimately selected to do.
Yeah, you get to know them a lot more. And then there's 2 videos here about what the sound is. this is a couple of kids that we interviewed last year. I don't know if you guys saw the videos last year. Yeah,
The board has it.
the board has it. Okay, so well, we go ahead.
Had to cut it down a little bit so that it was less embarrassing for us, but.
We need to unmute to play the videos.
I'm not sure, yeah, I don't know how.
Just try it.
Let's try it. And I'm holding a microphone, so that if you see me doing random things, that's because I'm holding the microphone.
Well, when you're doing this, I have questions, or answers the right one. No, it's
I feel like.
Any tech suggestions?
Don't play the video.
Back to there because they have the owls.
Is
Is
there subtitles?
PCs, let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Maybe you could summarize.
Yeah, so, in the first clip, the question was, how was this different for you? And so, they pretty much said that, you know, it's about the choice. Again, they got to choose what they, how they were able to show their learning. One of the students said that she actually had to work harder in this than.
Yeah, we were trying to play a
Oh,
video and there was feedback. Is there a way to play a video without having feedback?
Tell me the advantages and disadvantages of this approach.
well, when you have, when you're doing this instead of like a test has
It's better than.
the choice board, you get to show what you know, not by just answering the question.
I definitely thought it was more effective because I feel like I was definitely more engaged. Because it was different because you kind of had to work harder for it. Like the test, it just has questions that you just need to answer. It's just pretty quick. But for something like this, it's more of a project where you have to work to show what you know, and then if you don't know something, it's a lot easier for the teacher.
Okay, well, we won't.
I missed that. Yeah.
You're still learning.
Okay, well, anyways, they pretty much just shared like they're. I don't know what to do.
About now.
Better? Okay. They were just giving their views or their opinions on their experience. It was really fun to hear firsthand from the students. The second question was, what advice would they have? And they just had some fun responses. I don't know. One of them said that they would make their choice sooner because they took 4 days to make the choice and then they had to work on it over the weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
So there was but ultimately the kids really found value in it and they felt empowered by, being able to choose how they demonstrated.
Demonstrate how they learned it, yeah. And they're able to make deeper connections as well, so. Oh, okay, our successes and challenges. So I'm gonna start with the challenges. As far as time for planning, Angie's been working on her doctorate, so she's very busy and we don't have common planning. So we meet in the mornings, on weekends sometimes, we're like, okay, well, how are we gonna throw this together? So we kind of work around that. And then, what you see in the classroom is a lot of chaos. And we operate well like that because we're science teachers and there's a lot always going on in our classroom. But instead of just being a lot going on in the classroom that, we're trying to get everybody on track and make sure that they're all doing something, we found that every pocket in our classroom, they were actually engaged in what they were supposed to be doing. And it was, you came in and
We're like diagonal across the pod, and I kind of took a moment, looked around, and I was in awe. Every single one of these students is working, and it doesn't look like that all the time.
yeah, we're like,
And I kind of just popped over and I'm like, hey, what do you notice? She's like, I know, it's so cool. Anyway, and so we had a fun moment there with that.
yeah, just seeing like 100% engagement is awesome. So especially when you're not trying to fight those personalities that need that, they need to be able to be in charge and be, able to make their own choices.
Well, and it gave us time for students who really were having more of a struggle to like be able to give our, support where we're not managing, a lot of disengagement, but rather just, 1 or 2 students that maybe needed extra support. We were able to provide that in a more successful way.
So our successes, there's increased engagement, there's increased achievement, they're actually making connections at a deeper level. The student choice and student voice.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this risk versus reward and how trying new things is risky. We're both kind of the ones who will jump in and say, hey, let's try it. What we're doing is not working. But the reward was really big on this. And we are always saying how if we want our students to try things, then we need to model that for them. And we got a good, like, if you want, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like as an educator, we need to model the expectations we have for our students. So if we want them to learn, we have to be open to learn and trying new things and to try new things. So they can see that, we're not just doing the same old, but hey, you know what? We don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to try it and then we'll refine it. And I mean, that's kind of where that learning comes in. And so when we take those risks and try new things, we're modeling being lifelong learners, and that's what we want for our students. So
that's the end.
any questions?
Is this your first full year applying UDL, or is this a couple years in the making? Or?
I'd say it's the first full year because last year we started with like just the assessment piece. And then this year we front loaded it with the learning aspect of it. And then we'll end with that choice board at the end as well.
And I think before that, we've done some things, not quite to the extent, but we just didn't call it UDL. And so, now we're able to, look at that view of
Kind
it,
of
yeah, and tie it together, yeah.
Yeah, it's just good teaching, it's allowing everyone their strengths to come through.
I like the picture that you presented as far as getting to Seattle, because having access and just removing all the barriers for every student to be engaged in learning is critical. And so that's the difference, is just thinking ahead and planning ahead for those barriers. We meet them all the time in the classroom, but planning ahead is awesome. So thank you.
And it's really all of those things that we are doing in the classroom, but instead of maybe just doing one thing at a time, we have like 5 or 6 things going. So all of them have that access.
Have you found more students willing to take the risk? Be more brave?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
even students that I have not gotten any work out of them,
Right.
they actually started the vocabulary thing the other day because they got to choose what kind they were gonna do.
That's
So
awesome. That's great.
Do our student advisors have any questions about middle school?
No.
The expert. You just finished not very many years ago, but.
Yeah, I don't think I had. I mean, I wish I would have had this when I was in middle school. It was always test. But no, this is a really good thing. I'm excited and happy that the middle schoolers have this and gives them a chance to be creative.
Thank you very much.
She said.
Great presentation. Thanks, Ms. O'Brien, Ms. Kyle, for doing such a good job with our science students there at the middle school level.
thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do for our kids and letting them have choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Carrie. Next up comes our first reading of board policy 1250, student advisor to the board of directors, and 6512. What? We're still on our new business first reading of our board policies. Did I skip something? Okay, and so we'll have our first reading of board policy 1250 and our 6512 infection control program. So superintendent's meeting is going to start with 1250.
Yes, I am. This is the policy related to student advisors to the board of directors. And we've had this policy for quite a while. 1998 was when we first adopted it. So we made revisions along the way, but a couple that I'm proposing right now are based on the WASDA had sent a new update, and the first sentence in red, the board of director recognizes the value of student representation on the school board so that student voice and input is included in the board's work. I just like that statement. I think it reflects where we're at right now in valuing that. The A, B, C, and D, just there's a few changes in wording. So on B, instead of using the word convey, I really like the wording contribute to board discussions by providing, of course, student opinions, but then and perspectives. And then we added, there's an added for C, it's just new language is provide advisory votes when appropriate. And then the last one is instead of report to the ASB, we thought that it's best described, and this is what WASDA recommends, serve as a liaison to the ASB. So those are the recommended changes.
So this one is about our student advisors. So I'm hoping that our student advisors have an opinion or perspective they want to share about this.
I like it. Makes us sound efficient.
Yeah, I think the advisory vote would be a great idea. I know I'm a little biased, but I like it.
You represent a whole group of people. You could be biased or high schoolers, it's totally fine. So wondering if, how does the board feel about having student advisors providing advisory vote? I think it would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Is there a particular, are there certain subjects, like what qualifies then the student advisor vote?
It would just be like their opinion before we vote.
Oh, gotcha. So
It'd
they
be
are,
like
they are categorized as a voting.
Like they would say, I like that one a lot, or I think that you should probably not do that, or something along that line.
So I think like if we were doing something with, obviously coursework, EDL, you were asking about, where's what JROTC and something, that when does that start and what does that, so asking specific questions, I think that's, honestly, that's why you're here. I mean, why are you here if I'm not seeking your opinion? My thing is though, is I want to make sure that two representatives are feeling representative of the high school body.
Right.
That's my only, I just want to know that. I want to feel like, and if you're, you have certain pathways, you've come to us, but then I would like to hear or know that you've reached out to others in your school community outside of your pod, your group, your classmates, what you're seeing every day. And of course, Kyle being a senior, you are very much on your track to graduation. But I would like to know that you are in touch with freshmen and sophomores. What's their vibe? What are your concerns coming into school? So I would like to just know that you can come to the table, as that liaison. I think that's a very important role.
Yeah,
So
I like the word serve as a liaison because it talks about an interaction, whereas the word report to the ASB, that's like, delivering a message is more about the conversation and some of the ideas that we are talking about, the student advisors is doing things, and we haven't done this quite yet, but like at lunchtime, having a cookie table where there's could
I
be
agree.
conversation.
Yes.
So it's more being that connection.
and even open for discourse. I mean, I don't know that students are following what the board is considering, but
Right.
certainly if there was a hot button for you, say, hey, they're looking at cutting such and such course, or something that you feel relevant, or they're taking something off the table, then that would be something to take back to the high school and then relay that to us and say, this is the concern, positive and negatives. I would like to know those issues. Be great.
So I'm not sure if the advisory votes from the student advisors would be on every single thing like, I'm not sure if you have an opinion about a lot of this, the votes that we do, but if there is something that you feel strongly about one way or the other, I do want to hear your opinions. So I'm not sure how we would incorporate student advisory votes, but I thought it was good to have a conversation about it.
I think it would be helpful if we knew, like when you look at the board packet too ahead of time, like on Thursday it gets published, you look at it. If there's something in particular that you want to make an advisory vote before with the board votes, that you let me know, or the board president know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit more homework.
So could they even, sorry, just speak up in the moment?
They
I'd
could.
like to provide an advisory vote.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely, absolutely. Spontaneous.
And with advisory vote, we're not just restricted to like school stuff, right? Like we can also, if needed, or if we have something we'd like to talk about, like community stuff, I guess is what I'm saying, or like the more official stuff, is that allowed for us to talk about that? If
That's a
we
good question.
would like
Well,
to, or is it just like our opinion on the school stuff?
It's whatever's on the agenda for the night.
Okay,
So we,
something
so
relevant.
when we publish an agenda, then that means that's what the board publicly is going to talk about.
Right.
We can't talk, we don't have a different agenda item that has not been officially added.
Yeah, what with the agenda item, I mean, like, if, say, I don't know, like, if we're talking about budget or legislative stuff like that, and it's not school related, but not like specifically school related, I guess, like a curriculum for school, if it's like outside of school for community stuff, and it's on the agenda, yes, do we have a say in like,
I think anything that's on the agenda.
we're allowed to talk about? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Anything on the agenda.
Awesome, gotcha.
I like what it says in the description, the policy info. It says, there is broad agreement that students are well situated, if not the best situated, to know the impact of school board decisions, and their input is important. And I really like how it emphasized that the students are well situated to know how well the schools are going. And so I thought that was really, really helpful to read that. So that's our first reading of 1250. Does anyone have any changes that they would like to see?
No, it's good changes.
Director Ray, do you have any thoughts on this?
No specific changes or thoughts. Think it's a good idea.
Okay. Next up, we have our first reading of board policy 6512, infection control program. And that's going to be presented by Eric Hammond.
Yes, good evening, directors. This is a pretty minor policy change, changing the number of the policy from 6512 to 5004. And just some minor tweaks in there referencing the law that will follow the law. There's some legal references at the bottom, I think, that were updated and changed, and that's pretty much all there really is to it. Says we're gonna follow the law.
So we're just changing categories. Is that kind of what it is? We went from a certain series to the.
Putting it into staff, yeah. This
Okay.
Personnel is for the 5,000 series.
Okay.
And there was the paragraph at the very end was longer because of COVID requirements for vaccination. But those have been, we didn't adopt that until we knew what was going to happen in the future, and now it's shorter.
Okay. Good. A little tweaking.
So it just says we're going to follow the law and what's required.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Sounds good. Does it change?
Do our student advisors have any opinion?
Should we follow the law?
Sounds like a great idea.
Sounds legally required.
right.
Director Ray, any comments on this policy?
No, following the law is generally a good idea.
That's what I've been told. All right, next up comes our informational items, our superintendent's report. First, Dr. Sweeting.
Just wanted to say it had a great day or a great week at Eagle Creek last week for the Great Kindness Challenge, and there were just lots of kindness happening and goodwill and things. The kids made thank you cards and compliment cards that are going to actually messages that are going to go out to the community later in the spring, and they made kindness messages that went on a tree, a little heart tree, and it was great. It was wonderful. Also, I want to say that and recognize that this is the beginning of February's Black History Month. And we have resources available on the website. That's the Padlet that has books and novels and videos and information. So a great resource for everyone. Then it was mentioned tonight in the consent agenda, but our girls and boys wrestling teams have qualified for state, and then they go and compete starting this Friday in the morning. And then our boys and girls basketball teams are moving into district semifinals. And that's it.
Thank you. Go Eagles.
Yes. Go Eagles.
Next up is our legislative update and discussion.
All sorts of good stuff happening. So I had the opportunity to sit down yesterday a little bit, and what's great is I get this email every week called In Session. And so anyway, I read through that, and it's great because they give you a real synopsis of all the Senate bills and the House bills. And they even give you the pro sign-in, or I'm not exactly sure what testify other is. I'm guessing that you would be giving testimony, which I did not feel qualified to do on anything, but I will tell you, I did support Senate Bill 5527, which would be additional courses approved as a graduation pathway option. Senate Bill 55559 concerning restraint or isolation of students in public schools. It clearly spells out what schools/employees can and cannot do, essentially do no harm. I will say that I have a little bit of knowledge when my daughter did youth and government, so I would read through the bill in its original form. And it's a little bit to digest. It's not too legalese, but there's still some processing, and I really try to understand that. And if I have questions, I contact our folks in Olympia. The other one was Senate Bill 5626, improve media literacy and digital citizenship for subject area teachers who will effectively ensure media literacy. Apparently there's a 2-year cycle, and OSPI will establish a grant program to support school districts to integrate media literacy K through 12. I support that, thought that was great. Another one, House Bill 1565, recruitment, residency, research, and retention for 4 Rs of public school employees. I supported that as a kindergarten teacher / board member, because I think having something like a dashboard, something where it's a platform to access job opportunities, access job applicants. I mean, that seems like a win-win. So I think that's great. And then the final one was Senate Bill 5311, special ed funding. Now, this was interesting because the first thing on the docket was priority in special education. The House had their own bill, but then literally within a day before that was to be heard, a competing bill came up on the Senate side. And I believe it was in the Senate. Was it the Senate? Or it could have even been with the House, the second one, but it was diverting special education funds to go for special ed. And that got me very sad, because it isn't solving the problem. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I don't know why anyone would do that. It is counter to what our goal is. So it's fascinating to watch the House do a bill and the Senate do a bill. And you hope that somewhere in the middle, there's consensus and we get something moving forward. But I will just stay on top of that. And I do send a note. It's fascinating because it's the platform to do this is very simple. But you click on it and it says, do you want your your legislators, which is Clyde Shavers, Dave Paul, and Udall, I don't know how to say his name, he's out of Oak Harbor, to get that I support this bill. And I do. I haven't asked for them for feedback, but I just want them to know that these are our hot buttons. And I've also sent an email to Marissa Rathbone, because I want to understand Day on the Hill. I talked to my husband about this. He knows a little bit about it as well, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm meeting with people, if I'm preaching to a choir, or if I want to go with other people and try to sell them on why they should support this bill. So I want to spend my time wisely. And I do want to meet with people, but I want to make it impactful. So I will keep you all tuned into what that looks like, but I'm excited to go. And yeah, I feel like we have a lot on the plate, and we have such an awesome team down in Olympia. It's phenomenal what they are doing. So kudos to their efforts. But anyway, keep you posted.
Thank you. Yep. Exciting. With hope. All right, comments from board members. Do our student advisors want to start? Kyle?
So far, it's just pretty much business as usual. Personal news, we have playoffs for Knowledge Bowl this Wednesday, so crossing my fingers for that. Past that, it's been pretty normal.
Thank you. My turn. Well, over the weekend, I just came across a link that I have here off of Fox News and just wanted to read a little bit from it if I could. It was titled "The Washington School District Considers Closures as Student Enrollment Plummets." And I was just backtracking to our previous meetings about how we're also experiencing that. So like in my head, I'm like, oh, well, it's not just our school district that's experiencing it. So at least we're not alone in it. But just reading from it, it said Washington State's biggest school district is considering shuttering some schools and laying off staff in near future as enrollment rates continue to drop following the pandemic. And it says the city's school system has lost more than 3,500 students since the pandemic and expects to lose another 3,000 by the 2025-2026 school year, according to the data from the district. If that happens, it will mark in a 12.5 decrease in enrollment over 6 years. Then it just has a demographic where it's just like plummeting a ton. So I just thought that it was interesting and I took note of it, and I don't know what I was hoping to come from it, but I just thought it would be interesting to be like, hey, it's not just us that, at least we're not a problem, and it's not just us that's having this decrease in students happening all around us. But I just hope we can build back up from that and recover from the pandemic.
Yeah.
But in other news, doing great. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody tomorrow. That's all for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and thanks for your engagement and paying attention to current events. It is interesting, a strange phenomenon that we're all struggling with. Director Knapp, would you like to share anything?
Definitely, regarding the legislation, I did listen to some testimonies, and that was the House Bill 1436 that I was listening to. I think it was House Bill. So that was a competing one, or it's kind of.
I know, it's
confusing.
very, yeah.
But
Yeah, it is, it's right here, yeah, 1436, yeah.
And it is really simple once you get on there to get on and send messages about what is important. So I'm just sending notes out there for just stating, what we want and what we support. And of course, fully funding special education is on all of our lists. So I guess what I wanted to say is, Sherry, if you need something from us, please bring it to board members of the district, because I think that we'd like to support legislation for what we need in our district. Absolutely. And I do have a relative that works for Bellevue School District where they are consolidating some schools, so that's pretty tricky. So it is good to pay attention to what's going on. So I appreciate that you're paying attention too, because sometimes you wonder who else is seeing all of this that's going on, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, and then personally, I was able to go to the Haller Middle School band concert on last week. My son plays, and it was great. It was the 8th graders, so they had only had like a month together, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. And other than that, I'm looking forward to going to post for Student Voices on Friday. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Director Ray, do you have anything you'd like to share this evening?
No, nothing new to share. Thanks. So.
Thank you. Director Kelly, anything else you'd like to share?
Just that kind of what Mariska was saying, that I read, and I can forward it to you, a great article, and I don't remember, I read a variety of things. There's Seattle Times or Washington Post, but this is a phenomenon going on nationally. People are not showing up to school, and there's even stats of people just falling off the radar. They didn't just, wasn't private school or homeschool, like they're just gone. So it's something to definitely keep on your radar. I'd love you to keep us posted if you read new things. But yeah, that's a concern and we're not alone in that. And Seattle also will be in a consolidation phase. It's just, yeah, it's an interesting time. So thank you for finding that information. Yeah, nothing else new. Just look, tomorrow's 100 days. I got my 100-day t-shirt. I'm so excited. Got on Amazon. I'll be all super happy tomorrow. And I stopped by Safeway and picked up Fruit Loops because we have the sheet and I'm going to make them count. You don't get to eat the 100th Fruit Loop until you fill up the board. So, or maybe I'll make it now. But came out of it or something crazy, but yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, Valentine's and 100 days.
That's magical.
Major, yeah. Oh my-
They're gonna have so much energy.
Yes, we'll do the Fruit Loops, yeah, somewhere else in the day.
Well, that concludes the comments from board members section of our meeting. Next meeting will be on Monday, February 27th at 6:00 p.m. And before we adjourn, we are going into executive session. So I'm going to read the script for our executive session. We will now recess this meeting so that the board may convene in an executive session for the consideration of a minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease. I estimate that executive session will last approximately 15 minutes, during which time no final action will be taken. Following the executive session, this special meeting will be reconvened for the sole purpose of adjournment. So we are now recessed into executive.
And we're going to.
See ya, Kyle.
That's good.
Gary. All right, the board is back from our executive session. So we will reconvene this meeting, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Madam. Director Ray? He is not
adjourned.
any longer with us.
Director Kelly,
I.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nance.
Aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night. Drive safe.